Akira-sama! Welcome to a new episode of the Hoop Slice Podcast. Hosted the most students yet. And make his favorite piece of white boy. CProc.
Who was that?
Oh, it's just some random samurai guy came up with in the last 12 hours. I don't know.
Samurai Jack?
Samurai Jack. Samurai Jacket Hole. Woo! We're off to a great start today, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Let's do it. Well, we kind of got a little distracted with March Madness and the disaster for all the favorites that's turned into. Exciting tournament nonetheless, but quite heartbreaking for many of the favorites. So in light of all that news and excitement, there's been a lot of big front page storylines happening in the pro circuit. Jet, what's the first one that catches our eye and makes us grab our collective breaths?
I think this is it's an injury to a Western Titan that may change the landscape of the Western Conference, and it is none other than the King himself. He has been hampered by a high ankle sprain. Now, for normal human beings, this normally takes 6 to 8 weeks to recover from, but we're talking about LeBron. So what do you think, Chase?
Well, if I give him the LeBron rule, I feel like he should be back in 3 days.
Right. But yeah, this can be impending doom for the purple and gold, but I kind of want to look at it in a different light. I think their role-playing three-headed monster of Trez, Dennis Schroeder, and Kyle Kuzma should be able to at least hold down the ship until at least the King gets back. AD is still a question mark. We don't know when or where he's going to come back. Is it next month? Is it the following month? Will he be back for the first round of the playoffs? We don't know. But I think the King, he'll be back in 3 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, tops. And the Lakers could slide. They could slide into like 4th, 5th place. I mean, if they do that, I feel sorry for whoever they got to face in the playoffs if they're at 100%.
It's all shed a collective tear right now for Dave Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah.
Destined for yet another first round they won't make it out of. Oh, it hurts my heart. It hurts my soul to say that, but it might happen. But Schroeder, 15 points this season. Trez, solid, just under
14,
15 and 6.5 rebounds. Kuzma, just under 7 rebounds, 12 points a game.
12 points, yeah.
So you're right. I mean, those numbers might even see a pop. They might get a pop on those numbers and keep them afloat, as you were saying. That's
not to cut you off. Even though like they lost their last 3 games, one of them being the game LeBron went out. They couldn't recover from seeing that happen. It looked like a way worse injury than it was. So that kind of
throws off your game momentum.
Yeah. But yeah, they lost the last 3 games. They had tough 3 games. But I think they should be able to beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, if that makes any sense.
This is true. The problem is they're going to really struggle against their direct competition.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they lost to Utah by darn near 30 when LeBron was playing.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they gonna do without him?
Right.
Phoenix is red hot right now. The Clippers are a weird type of hot.
Yeah.
Like they're good, but they don't look good. I don't know. The Clippers will be fine. But the Lakers are definitely. It's going to take a lot just to hold on to the home court, and I think they're going to desperately need that home court because if Denver has the edge on them, that's going to be a tall task. With considering the fact that AD is probably not going to come back till at best a week before the playoffs start.
Yeah. Do you have the standings up right now?
I do.
Where's Denver?
Denver is in 5th. They're
in 5th.
An exact 2 games behind the Lakers.
Okay. This could be Denver kind of has their number, right, this season?
So after careful research, in the whopping singular game that the Nuggets and Lakers have played this year, the Lakers did win.
Okay.
And so they're probably going to be motivated for some revenge, but with only 2 games separating them, it's really just going to come down to the Lakers overall play against everyone else.
Right.
And I like you're saying that they'll beat the Spurs, they'll beat the Grizzlies.
The Rockets.
Everyone beats the. I think you and I beat the Rockets.
Off
I
the
think,
couch.
yeah. that'll be one deadly backcourt right there. Show up a handle.
Right.
Show off that J.
Yeah.
But they'll beat those teams fine. But Portland, who I don't think they would necessarily struggle with at all, with everyone healthy.
Yeah.
They won't stand a chance against Portland. Portland can't have a nosebleed, but no LeBron and no AD, they'll certainly score enough to knock the Lakers down a couple pegs.
Yeah.
They're certainly not going to beat their building mates. And Phoenix is red hot, and the Jazz are right back. They had a little bit of a slump around the All-Star break, but they're right back to first place now, so they're not touching them either. I don't know. I think the Lakers, if the injury timelines for those two are what we expect. I don't think I think the Lakers are going to really struggle to stay in that mix. They're not going to get home court advantage at all.
Yeah.
Because Denver and Portland will both leapfrog them. And they could wind up playing. Well, you know what? It may not be the worst thing in the world if the Lakers flip to 6.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the standings hold, they'll be playing the Clippers. They don't have to travel. And what's home court advantage when your opponent plays in the same building as you?
Yeah. So I think that's the goal for them. Like, aim for 6. If you can like continue winning games, just aim for 6 and you'll be just fine.
Right. Yeah. Aim for it. 6, in air quotes, wherever the Clippers might fall.
Right.
Because the other thing is I don't think they want to. I don't want to say LeBron's, slow and can't run with the Suns anymore, but I kind of don't want. If I'm the Lakers, I kind of don't want to play the Suns in the first round.
Yeah, not at 100%.
No, not with Ayton. Not with Ayton getting more confidence. And I mean, if you talk about DeAndre Ayton, a very confident DeAndre Ayton going up against a hobbled Anthony Davis, I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Now. All right. Now, speaking of the injuries, if you're the Lakers and you're behind the curtain making all the moves, do you pause on your trades that you were going to make, or do you still make them?
I mean, if they could get Andre Drummond in for on the cheap, then pull the trigger. But I mean, what do they really have to trade?
Yeah.
Because at this point, anything of value they need right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I heard they're looking at trying to get Aaron Gordon as well. Now that he's apparently on the market.
I think that would save them, but I don't. Orlando would be out of their mind to give him up for anything on the back end of the Lakers roster.
Yeah, I'm gonna need Kuzma and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
They I actually heard on the radio they were talking about this. The reason why it's Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated. The reason why he didn't think that the Lakers were going to be active on the trade deadline is because the only real piece that a team would want is Taylor Horton-Tucker.
Okay, yeah.
And the Lakers are not going to give him up. And he's averaging, he's playing, where is minutes per game? He's playing, he's only playing 18 minutes a game, but he's averaging 8 points per game. And he's shooting 45% from the field. So he's put up good numbers for a limited showing. And that's someone that we don't want to talk about somebody's numbers exploding, spiking in the wake of LeBron and Anthony Davis both being out at the same time. That's, Horton-Tucker is someone that really could see his numbers pop because
Exactly.
now
Yeah.
not only is he going to be asked to play more minutes, he's going to be asked to fill more production. So he could really come into his own.
That's definitely a good point. I totally forgot about Taylor. He's showing some flashes this season, and he's another player, like you said, that could definitely show what he's worth out here in these next couple of games, or more than a couple of games.
And
whole gang of games.
Whole gang of games. The King wasn't the only injury that kind of broke our hearts recently. The superb rookie LaMelo Ball down in Charlotte, he broke a bone in his right wrist recently against the Clippers. And LaMelo Ball, this is someone that since he became a starter back in February, he's averaged 19.5 points, just under 6 boards, 6 assists, and just under 2 steals a game. And they've won two games in a row. They've won 2 games in a row since he got hurt. 2 games in a row since he got hurt. And they're in 4th right now, which I go into this segment thinking that like I was the kiss of death towards the Charlotte Hornets season. I'm singing up their praises. They're going to get home court advantage in the playoff. LaMelo's going to be rookie of the year. Blah blah blah. Well, I mean that doesn't exactly take much of a Nostradamus take to call, but whatever. Here I am, really buying in the Hornets riding high, and then Lowell breaks his wrist. He's probably out for the rest of the season. But they won 2 games in a row since the injury, and they're in 4th place. I feel like he, as big of an impact as LaMelo has on the team, as much energy as he brings to them, as much of an injection of energy that he puts them at the start of games, he's not on the floor at the end of close games.
Right.
He's sitting on the bench doing fangirl, waving the towel around. But closing out games for them is Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward's having a legit comeback player. Well, I guess it's not really comeback player of the year because he was healthy last year. But as far as like actual production and being a franchise player again in his career, it's still it's a little bit of a mini comeback. And Scary Terry's having an absolute career year. Definitely one of my top all-star stubs this year.
You've been bigging up Terry for a while.
He's just there's something about him, bro. He watching him out there, he's just a little maniac, and he's got cojones of brass.
Nah, yeah, he could ball, and he's fearless.
Yeah, there's one thing that will always impress me is like you're gonna walk up at the end of a game, F you, and take the Schlatt shot and drain it.
Yeah.
And it just look completely unfazed. He's not going to lose. He's not going to lose his cool. He's not going to run around like he just won the World Series. I switch sports references. He's not going to run around. He's not going to run around acting like he just won a championship. He's just like, yeah, I've been here before. I do this.
Right. This is what I do. This is regular.
Yeah. And so, you know what? I mean, like I said, when LaMelo got hurt, I'm thinking like, oh, that's it. It's kiss. I cursed them. I jinxed them. I gave them the kiss of death, and then they're gonna the floor's gonna fall out from underneath them. But you know what? I'm kind of thinking. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think they'll hold on here.
Yeah.
Maybe they may not hold on, get that 4th seed. Maybe they still will. Maybe I'll still look like
maybe
a
they
genius.
still will.
But even if they don't, I think they're still gonna be in it. And you look at the East right now. You got who they're fighting with: Atlanta, Miami, the Knicks, Boston, Indiana, and what was this other playing spot? Chicago. You tell me the Hornets aren't better than all of them?
Yeah. Now, do you think LaMelo still has done enough to still win the Rookie of the Year?
I would say yes, because his numbers are superb.
Yeah.
Not just his numbers.
They're winning.
Not just his numbers since becoming a starter, but overall, like his points are not quite as high as since his becoming a starter, but his rebounds and assists are still in that high 5s, low 6s range. Mm-hmm. His steals are still. I mean, the numbers are there.
The numbers are there.
I mean, who's our favorite? Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, he's fine. But
Anthony Edwards has come on. Oh my God. he was playing like very pedestrian, and I think they just like maybe the coaching staff is just like, yo, just go ahead, just play free, and he's been going crazy as of late.
What's he up to right now? He's up to 17 points per game.
Yeah.
All right.
He had a couple 40-point games, a lot of mid to high 30-point games. I don't know, bro. I think if LaMelo doesn't get it, they're probably gonna give it to Anthony.
If he gets hot, if he gets really hot and cranks those numbers closer to 20, I could definitely see it. But the other thing is, you play on an absolute toilet bowl of a team in Minnesota. And even LaMelo being hurt, LaMelo turned a team that was very mercurial to get the 8th seed into a legit middle of the pack playoff contender.
Right.
And I mean, like, it would, for me, it would take a lot for Anthony Edwards to do enough to leapfrog him.
Yeah.
And like, I don't see James Wiseman doing it. Trying to think of the other.
Obi Toppin has been.
Obi hasn't even playing.
Yeah, he's not playing.
What's Obi even doing this year? Let's see. 4 points per game. Woo! Yeah, I don't think our boy's gonna be. I don't think our boy's gonna be challenged with that award. But
he could get most improved next year though.
Oh, he could. He definitely. Yeah. Let's call it early. Let's call it early. Halliburton's just under 13 points, 5 assists per game.
No.
I mean, I'll take. I mean, considering the fact that Sacramento's not almost as bad as Minnesota, I'll take Anthony Edwards over Tyrese Halliburton right now. Which is sad because we did both like Tyrese Halliburton very early.
I do like Tyrese.
But I mean, I think I'd still give it to LaMelo. I mean, it would take a lot because, again, you've got, Anthony Edwards might put up better numbers by the end of the year, but he's playing on a team that's in last place and has struggled to get to 10 wins.
Yeah. Unless they hit him with I don't know. I mean, Russie even went to the playoffs, even though he won the MVP and averaged a triple-double. As in, what, 8th seed, 7th seed?
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I kept trying to dial my brain back to think who was the next best option. That I remember myself being not totally.
James Harden.
Huh?
It was Harden that year, right? Him and Harden.
Oh, was that? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably. You're probably right. Okay, that's right. Because I remember there's one year where I was like, I was infuriated that Harden didn't win the MVP. I'm like, how do you not give this to this man right now?
Yeah.
So that was probably that year too.
It's definitely that year. Harden got robbed that year. I mean, if he was to lose to anybody, it had to be Russie. I mean, when the last time we seen something like that? You know what I'm saying? So.
And I like Russie was playing with nobody. He was playing with a LeBron James 2007 Cavaliers team.
Yeah.
So to even get him in the playoffs.
Yeah. Him and Stevie Adams.
Yeah. Oh God. You bring up that man. Why do you bring up that man? I hate Stevie Adams. No, but you're right. It was not the Steven Adams is your next plus player of a team that doesn't exactly ring very big bells. But so there wasn't a lot on that roster for him. So it's like, okay, I can kind of see it, but again, 8th seed. It's MVP at an 8th seed.
That's crazy. But like you said, for Anthony Edwards to win this award, he would have to do something, I guess, spectacular like that.
He would have to in these last 25 games, 20 games, something like that. Yeah, he would have 30 games, something like that. He would have to average damn near 25 points per game.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's possible. Someone's got to score on bad teams.
Yeah.
Very possible. Karl Anthony Towns has been a little MIA at times this year. Granted, due to the whatever he's the tragedies he's been dealing with his own personal life with the pandemic and whatnot. But so someone's got to score that points, and
D'Lo's supposed to be coming back soon too.
Yeah.
So
Hey, you think the Rockets excuse me. Yeah, forget that. Grab the back door. You think the Timberwolves get to 20 wins? You think they double their win output?
I don't know.
I don't know why they would want to, but get that draft pick, boys. What are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's between them and the Rockets.
Let Cat come to the Knicks, and you guys get a draft pick.
They could get another good player to go with D'Lo, Anthony Edwards, and Cat, and they got who did they trade for last year? What's dude's name? He was on Denver.
Oh, la 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 la.
No, I'm talking about. He's a shooter.
He was a guard.
Mm-hmm. But they could have a legit squad depending who they get out the draft. They draft right. A good young squad with Cat being like, the elder statesman kinda.
Not Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley was already there. Well, he's got problems right now too.
Malik Beasley is the person I'm thinking of. He got traded there like either last year or the year before last.
Yeah, he's got some legal problems, I think, right now though.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I think I heard that.
Maybe
it was. Well, maybe it's. Well, I don't know if it's actually current. Maybe I was. It's current as far as the repercussions coming up, but I don't think it's actually something that just happened.
Yeah.
I think it was something from a while ago. But anyway, those are our injuries. Jet, where can the kiddies find us?
Okay, guys, it's shameless plug time. Hit us up on our socials at Hoops Boys Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. Come chat with us, all things basketball. It's March Madness. Trade deadline's about to end tomorrow at 12. So yeah, hit us up. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, we'll have we'll have some juicy storylines to talk about that on our next show.
For sure.
Let's wrap it up with a bit of sad news. And this may seem like just too big of an obvious way to describe this player, but the NBA lost a true legend recently. He played in an era where athletes put up very much video game numbers, and such numbers were commonplace to the point where neither of us, saw these players play. So we kind of look at these statistics and we're like, are those real? But they were real, and they're incredible. And these guys did it from the get-go because there were no excuses. They came in. There were no excuses for not performing. They came in polished. The players weren't these super millionaires that they are now. And with Elgin Baylor's passing, his Lakers years date back to the old Minneapolis days. Not quite way back to George Mikan, but Minneapolis started playing with Vern Mickelson. By the time he ended with the Lakers in Los Angeles, he was playing with Walter Stilt. Never won an MVP, but he did make the All-NBA team 10 times. And his third, I was looking at his numbers to get a grasp of just how good they were. And his third and fourth years in the league, he averaged just under 35 points one year and over 38 points the following year. Now, as crazy as that sounds, this is a ton of points just on that note by itself. He also averaged near 20 boards per game as well, and almost 5 assists. So he's a very versatile player, and it's an extremely versatile player. And he was someone that a lot of hearing people memorialize him in the last several days. They described it as like the original Jordan, the original Kobe, well before those players even before they're even, well, certainly Kobe, but even Jordan, before Jordan was even born. I mean,
Before Dr. J. Before Dr. J. Yeah.
Yeah. Elgin Baylor was really forging that cast, that mold of player before we even knew what that mold really was. And would it be right if we did pay homage and make note of the presence that he left on the game. Rest in power, number 22.
Rest in power to the legend.
And we're back. Now, pretty much everyone last weekend in the country took a real one on the chin last weekend, and their brackets kind of went kabloomy. So we bring back our insider Greg to sift through the ashes and gauge what's left in the rest of the field. How you feeling, Gregors?
Well, I think the usual madness was to be expected. We don't always know how it's going to unfold. I think the other interesting thing too is I think we all got an idea, which it was difficult to gauge how teams were going to look out of conference. This is a whole new arena. And, I'll use a particular team, that UCLA. They came out of nowhere and they looked like a completely different team. And I think in their instance and others, you can make the argument, a lot of these teams didn't play a full slate of games. And a lot of these teams now are coming into their own. And timing was everything in this tournament. And I think you saw a lot of that. And just the unfamiliarity of the circumstances, the lack of fans out of conference. So as much as there were shocking upsets as far as the number of the seeds, I don't think overall, I think unexpected was what we should have expected.
Yeah, well, it really went hand in turn with the way the last year's gone.
Exactly.
So of course, would it be totally transparent if we didn't make ourselves eat a little crow? So if we turn the clock back to last episode and some of your picks, what do you have to say post-mortem on the likes of Purdue, Oklahoma State, and UConn? Three quarters of your called Final Four.
I think they're all different. They're all different. So we'll start with Purdue, for example. It's funny. While I'm in Pittsburgh and wagering on the games, a buddy of mine said, "Oh, well, you love Purdue. We obviously we're going to bet Purdue." And I said, "Funny you should say that." I said, "As much as I like Purdue in this tournament, I don't like them tonight." Purdue was a 7-point favorite against a North Texas team who was fierce defensively. I thought I didn't think it was a great matchup game one. And a lot of these teams, if they get through, I think you would have seen a Purdue team, but they did not. They don't shoot free throws well, and their lack of experience. There are a bunch of freshmen in the backcourt. They don't shoot free throws well, and I think they got bit. And so I think that is par for the course with some of these young teams. On that same token, Oklahoma State, I think, was the prototypical. If they got through that game, I think they make a full run, and I still do. They showed their youth as much as possible in the first half. Oregon State runs out to a 10, 12-point lead. Now, again, you're talking there's basically 8-9 minutes left in the first half, and Oklahoma State started jacking up threes. You could see it coming from a mile away. The panic set in. They were trying to tie the game with one shot. And it was ugly at the end of the first half, and you knew they'd make a run. It was clear as day they would. Mid-second half, they're already in the they're already in the bonus. Cunningham could get to the lane, and Anderson pretty much at will. And you could see again, the closer they got, they reverted back to jacking threes when Oregon State basically had no chance to guard them in the lane. Oklahoma State's a young team, and I think the youth, the panic set in. And it got him. The other one that I will say I was completely shocked by was UConn. Fascinating stat. You'll hardly ever see this. First of all, they had, I believe, 22 offensive rebounds. Do you know how many?
That's a lot.
22 offensive rebounds. They had more offensive rebounds than field goals made, which it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team, and I don't want to cut on UConn. It wasn't lack of effort by any means. I've literally never seen a team miss more shots from 5 feet in my entire life. They just couldn't get the ball to roll in. And especially considering the Big East semifinals, it was basically they did almost the same thing to Creighton. You just assume there's no way they could do this 2 games in a row, and it was even worse. Bouknight, their star, he didn't play well. There's no other way to put it. I think he missed 4 or 5 free throws, front end of a 1-on-1 when they were down 5, turnover when making a run. I just think for them, Sonogo, the big guy, the young guy, which was, I brought that up, I believe one of our past times, he had to avoid foul trouble. He had the first 2 fouls UConn had, was out of the game for almost the first half. One of those nights, it did not go well. Their best players didn't play well. And yeah, Maryland, who was a decent team, capitalized. And as much as UConn made a feverish run late, you can't overcome that. It was too much.
Isn't that always the rub on UConn when their big men get in foul trouble? Then
yeah, it was a very odd performance, and there's no excuses here because even early second half, they actually made a couple shots, and UConn's perimeter D has been excellent all year. Maryland had open shots from three all day long, and to be honest, I want to go back and watch the tape just to see like what exactly happened because it was very, even for this year's team, very un-UConn like. I think they got out of sorts. I believe it was a 14-point deficit at the half, which they eventually got down, but it got late early for them, and you could see the panic and the disheveled nature of their possessions kind of take place in the second half.
Took you back to that the old Caron Butler versus Juan Dixon game, except not with obviously UConn not performing up to that level.
Yeah, like I said, this was one of the stranger games. Like you couldn't, as a UConn fan, even I couldn't come out of that being that mad at Maryland, or they credit to them, yes, no doubt, but UConn they couldn't hit a shot. It was, I don't know if you saw, they literally missed. There was one possession early in the game, the first couple minutes, they literally got like 5 offensive rebounds and couldn't get the ball in the hole. We're talking 2-3 footers. Again, it's not lack of effort. It's not lack of it. Just sometimes the ball doesn't go in, and it was the wrong time for them to have that.
Execution wasn't there.
Just they couldn't put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, short tangent for a second. Do you think that Bouknight's performance hurts his draft stock?
It didn't help. Let's put it that way. So there are two factors why I say it doesn't help. He hasn't shot well from three pretty much the majority of the season. Not horrible, but especially late in the season in that game, did not shoot well. There's another knock on him, which Cade Cunningham has a little of the same, but Cade has more of a pedigree to go off of. He has a very high dribble. And there was a possession, which it was a huge play in the game. I'm going to say it was about 4 or 5 minutes left. UConn got it to 5. 4 or 5. Bouknight is up the court, and again, he got picked because it was kind of a lazy dribble. So it's very clear to recognize the talent, but I don't think it helped him. So if we were looking for a run to boost him into the top 5-10, he's probably hovering around the 8 to 13 range, but it didn't help boost his stock, put it that way. You don't come away from it thinking he's a bad player by any means, but there are things he has to work on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Normal Knicks draft range. Probably not this year, but normal Knicks draft range.
No, he's way better than what the Knicks have drafted the last 20. Yeah, no, like I said, I think he will be a very good player. I think that's clear to everyone, but he does have some rough areas to clean up. In past years, you'd see a guy like, for instance, I'm just not the same player, but Corey Kispert, who played all 4 years, and you see what these extra years have done for him. Bouknight he's not going to be around those next 2 years, and I'm sure if he had those extra 2, you would see a complete different product. But
right,
it is what it is. You can't deny the guy millions of dollars for coming
out. And to take it back to Purdue real quick, that said the line was 7. Was that what you think that should have been a red flag then?
No, I actually don't, because North Texas is primarily a defensive stalwart. There's not going to be their whole game plan is to not have a lot of possessions, not have a lot of points. So 7 points with a team who's going to burn the clock, who's going to try and milk every second out of every possession. I don't think it's crazy. And the thing that worried me with Purdue in that first game as well is, they're tenacious. They get after it defensively. You're probably going to foul a lot. Purdue was not a good free throw shooting team. So in my estimation, Purdue as a 7-point favorite was dangerous. So ironically enough, as much as I love Purdue for the tournament, we actually went with North Texas for that game for that reason.
Yeah. That it kind of more often than not last weekend, it was kind of the day of the under.
Yeah, and I know we spoke about that. A lot of these, I try to use an analogy. You go into these big arenas, and at any level, you've played high school, college, and sometimes it looks like you're shooting into the middle of the ocean, especially with no fans there. Seriously, if you have an arena that holds 10 to 15,000 plus, and there's no one there. That basket looks like in the middle of nowhere. And I remember, do you remember Buddy Hield with Oklahoma?
Oh, yes.
When they lost in the Final 4 years back. And I mean, they look, I just remember the first half, and it was exactly that. That was a phenomenal shooting team. And the first half, they couldn't hit a thing. And I honestly think the eyeballs adjustment, it really is a factor. And I think a lot of the unexpectedness of the crowd, a new opponent, I'm not entirely shocked by that.
Right. Moving on to the next topic. I get last time I gave you a little bit of an opportunity to dial back to our previous conversation at midseason and gauge whether Nova was a threat to Baylor. And you said, I'm down on Nova. The point guard's hurt. They're not going to do anything. They're going to lose to Winthrop. And sure enough, then all of a sudden, where are we in the Sweet 16? Nova advances, and they're playing Baylor.
It is ironic that it's actually Nova and Baylor.
Yeah. Do you want to walk them back a little bit and then get back on the train that you were at back in February? Or
got to give credit to Nova, plain and simple. I mean, Winthrop, who did not play a great game, but that was a solid team. Chandler Vaudreuil, the point guard, an excellent player, 6'7", basically a triple-double machine. And I thought he would exploit that weakness. To Villanova's credit, Jay Wright did a great job. They played a great game, and like any game in the tournament, they came out against North Texas early deficit and just shot the lights out. And I remember when we spoke way back, when we first brought up the Villanova would be a threat to Baylor, it was that they can shoot the three. They can. I mean, I'm okay with eating crow again. I think it ends here for Nova. And again, I think this is where Gillespie being out is even of the utmost importance because Baylor causes a ton of turnovers. To Villanova's credit, they've gotten through to this point. Unfortunately, I think it ends here. I think the Gillespie loss will fully be felt in this matchup. And it's no fault of Villanova's, but they got somewhat of a break, getting over 10 seeds. Baylor is not that. And Baylor against Wisconsin on Sunday looked as good as I've seen them in a long, long time. So a great job by Villanova. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I think for them, this is a really bad matchup. I think Baylor is loaded for bear right now.
You like them to cover the 7.5?
That's debatable. Gun to my head, I would say yes. I just think they're going to stifle Villanova. I don't think Villanova is going to get the looks that they've got in the last few games. And I could see this one getting away from Nova. Again, they've shot the lights out. I don't want to totally dismiss it, but I would stick with Baylor here. I would.
And the other big storyline kind of the weekend is everyone was so big on the Big Ten going in the tournament, and they really kind of squatted their pants a little bit, and replacing them was the performance of the Pac-12 and two schools, which we've already touched on a little bit so far, that are now in the Sweet 16 and play exceptional basketball. Oregon State and UCLA, which UCLA, everyone was high on the Izzo magic. Michigan State have turned the clock back in a little bit of a run. And then Oregon State, here they are, the Pac-12, won the Pac-12, and they're kind of getting looked down upon, and they've taken out, they took out two superior schools. And why did everyone overlook these teams? How did we fly by with these two game dominant performances by both teams?
Well, I think you have to take them first of all. The Pac-12 did a phenomenal job. I mean, anyone who watched this weekend, they were excellent. I think you have to separate the teams here, though. Whereas UCLA, they lost Chris Smith, who was their best player in the year. They were not the same the end of the year. So there's no one who could have said in their right mind that, oh, this team is now ready to roll in the tournament. They hadn't played well in 4 or 5 weeks. I don't want to say they got a break against Michigan State, because Michigan State had a few chances to kind of put that game away and did not. And credit to UCLA, they battled all the way back. I would say that their guard play and their lack of turnovers has been excellent. And I think, as we touched on earlier, it looked like UCLA to me was a team that, especially after they lost Smith, they needed a little more time to find themselves. Because that UCLA team, even if they had lost to Michigan State that night in the playing game, that was a completely different UCLA team that had played the prior 4 weeks. And they now look like a team. I believe they're facing Bama. Bama's really good, but I would not dismiss UCLA again, because Bama's a team that loves to get after it, force turnovers, and UCLA is one of the best in the country at limiting them. So I think UCLA is the real deal. I don't necessarily think they win this tournament, but I think they figured themselves out at just the right time. Oregon State, I think, is a bit of a more of a mystery. Tennessee came in. Tennessee's MO was their excellent defensive team. They can be very sporadic offensively. Well, that's exactly what happened on Friday afternoon. Oregon State took a big lead, and Tennessee's offense was abysmal. So Oregon State had an early lead. Credit to them. Interesting thing about them, not a great shooting team. They shot the lights out in both games. They're three. So again, they made me wrong in the second round. Oklahoma State, no doubt. They shot way above their norm especially from three in those two games. And credit to them. Oklahoma State, as we touched on earlier, panicked. I think Oregon State has hit their limit. That's just me, and I don't mean to discredit them, but I think they got as much as they could have. I also don't want to dismiss the prior 3 months of the season when they were, an average team at best. So credit to them, but again, I think the Cinderella slipper is going to fall off again for Oregon State, but they did a great job.
Yeah, you really think they're playing with fire going into this Loyola game?
I just think
brick wall defense.
Listen, they played very well, and I don't no discredit at all. I just think they're playing a little above their means, and especially the shooting percentages for a team that's shooting 25 to 30% higher than normal, especially from three. I don't necessarily expect that to continue. And again, they're going against Loyola Chicago, who, touching on the Big Ten's disappointment, we saw what they did to Illinois. Illinois, I was stunned, not at Loyola Chicago winning. They held a comfortable lead the entire game, and I haven't seen Illinois, even in losses, struggle to get good looks like that all year. So I personally think Oregon State has this is a terrible matchup for them, in my opinion, because I think Loyola Chicago will get after one of those three uncontested 3-point attempts they had the first two rounds, and I think Loyola Chicago will shut them down.
Sister Jean.
Yep, Sister Jean. That was such an impressive performance, and about the Big Ten, on a whole, they did not play well. I can't look at that game and say, oh, Illinois disappointed. No, Loyola Chicago was that good.
Shut them down. Yeah.
Whenever most of these upsets, you have a team go out to a lead. You know the favorite's going to make that big run. Like even Oklahoma State did. They brought it from 14 or 15 to 2 at one point. Loyola Chicago kept that lead the entire game. It never got below 6. And I was just so impressed with just how difficult they made in the passing lanes. Illinois, Coburn believe he had 21 or 22. And I don't want to say it was a soft 22, but they did such a great job defensively against Illinois. So I don't look at Illinois when we're talking about the Big Ten as a disappointment. I think you have to give credit to Loyola Chicago. They were excellent.
Turning focus back to Baylor, now that they've kind of gotten out of that that second round buzzsaw, they're going up against Nova right now, a weakened Nova, or at least as we thought. Do you think that we're gonna get this prize gem matchup in the finals with Gonzaga and Baylor?
If a glance at the bracket, I would say so at this point. So Baylor, assuming Baylor beats Nova, they're probably going to get Arkansas. Arkansas is a very good team. It was an excellent game against Texas Tech. We've all probably loved, including myself, the Oral Roberts story. I think that one ends here. So I just think it bodes well for Baylor. So you're looking at beating Nova, probably Arkansas. I guess we can't dismiss Loyola. They're definitely can't. And actually, you know who would worry me if I'm them? And again, we did touch on this week. Syracuse is a complete different team right now. They are a complete different team. I mean, I couldn't believe how efficient defensively and offensively they were against West Virginia. I would not want to play Syracuse right now. I just, that zone will cause problems. Now, again, I do think Baylor is the best team out of the South and Midwest, and I do think they will get there. But that, to me, Syracuse would be kind of a sleeping giant there, in the sense that they're if you see them now as opposed to 2 months ago, It is completely different. And Buddy Boeheim just he keeps shooting the lights out. So it's one game, 2 games. Now it's 4 or 5, and I don't see any signs of him slowing down. So I really do. I think Syracuse is a hidden giant over there. But yes, getting back to that, I do think Baylor, Gonzaga clearly to me look like the 2 best teams over the last weekend. I do.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna get the chalk.
I would think so. And you've seen good efforts from Gonzaga. I think we actually discussed this last time. The Oregon USC, which actually came to fruition, as many as we got wrong, that one we pegged. I thought Oregon would beat Iowa. Those one, especially USC. If USC gets Gonzaga, I would say that is the one pretty much definitive weakness Gonzaga has. If you have Mobley in the middle, a 7-footer, Gonzaga doesn't have that interior presence. So now again, Gonzaga's guard play and everything else is phenomenal, but that's an area where Gonzaga could get hurt. So if they don't shoot well that night and Mobley controls the inside, these games happen.
That was your Achilles heel for them way back when, thinking if they played West Virginia because of their size. Now you have USC with size.
A team who can get easy baskets, because you're going to have to, who can hurt them inside. It's still going to require Gonzaga playing at far less superior level than what they're used to. But I would say USC is a roadblock for them if that happens. I think USC on the right night could get them. But again, with that being said, Gonzaga and Baylor, they look like the real deal, as we thought a long time ago.
All right. Now, on to the fun stuff. Degenerate time.
Excellent.
I was looking at the total for Loyola. That's a number in the first round we like the under on. And the number now, they've actually combined for more points in both of the previous games, and the number currently sits. Do you think this is a trap? Is this a trap total?
What is the total again in front of you?
Especially considering the fact that they're playing Oregon State, who's scored pretty well.
What do we have the total at for that game?
126.5, if I'm not mistaken. 125.5, excuse me.
125.5. That sounds a little bit low. It does. I'm not convinced Oregon State. Here's the other part about Loyola Chicago that I recognized more this weekend. How efficient offensively they were. So let me harken back to the first round against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech had a pretty good lead for about halfway through the first half. And at one point, I believe it was 15-3. And I started thinking to myself, like, wow, Loyola Chicago is great defensively, but what happens if they drop in this hole? They didn't shot their way right out of it. So Loyola Chicago to me, and I don't love Oregon State defensively at all. Loyola Chicago, I think, is probably going to put up 70 plus in that game. So that actually, I might actually lean over, and that's just giving credit to Loyola. I think they will exploit Oregon State.
I think I know your answer to the next one is going to be yes. Do you think Syracuse is a great dog fit at getting 6.5?
Absolutely. I actually think right now, Houston, credit to them. If you caught the second round game against Rutgers, they competed as hard as possible. I thought they got the benefit of a few whistles that were a little shady. That helped them get by. But first off, I think Syracuse just looks like a better team, plain and simple, number one. Number two is DeJon Jarreau, arguably Houston's second best player. If you watched, he was the player that they kept calling a timeout for. It seemed like he was having leg issues. Whether it was a bit of Hollywood acting, I'm not really sure. It seems a bit
finals moment.
But with that being said, it did appear he's not 100%. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't assume he's going to turn that around and be 100% a couple days later to begin with. But even if Jarreau is healthy, Syracuse to me right now, like I said, that is a completely different team than what they were a month ago. So I think Syracuse is. I think they're the real deal right now. I do.
Yeah. Kind of a low money line, not a big risk on it, but 221, that's might be easy money, you think?
Easy money, there's no such thing as we know, but
that's true.
I said, remember what I said to James early. I said, understand if you follow this tournament over the years, underdogs in general, if you blindly took underdogs across the way, you're going to win money. Syracuse is that, and I think this is a great spot for it. Absolutely.
It's a little funny going away from gambling back to basketball for a second. I saw this funny. I heard on the radio over the past week in between these games, and there was like, "Oh, the zone," and the host that was talking was like, "They've been playing the zone for 30 years. Why can't anyone figure it out?" I've been saying this for years too. I've been thinking the same thing for years.
Chase, this year more than others, like I will say, I'm stunned at the level of turnaround. And again, I mean, just what we touched on earlier, this unfamiliar year. It looks like they needed more time as well. Teams lost games. Teams didn't get to see out of conference opponents. So Syracuse has been going against all ACC opponents. And if you think about it, they're the ones who've seen it most. They're the ones who are able to play against it the most. They have a better idea. They're now up against teams who, sure, they're practicing it. They're simulating. Their scout team can come nowhere close to what Syracuse actually is, the real deal. And you saw it against West Virginia. It seemed like every time West Virginia's big, even down low, their bigs had the ball, they were surrounded by 3 guys. So, to simulate and practice and to see this in the real deal. And again, I think it's a case of it's night and day, number one. And I think it's just they needed that time, like I said about UCA earlier. It just looks like it clicked at the right time. And because I think, like I said, if you saw them over the first 2 games, they were pretty dominant. West Virginia, shot the lights out to get back in it. But Syracuse was really good, really good.
I know I'm sure you're very excited with the way Oral Roberts played.
Amazing.
For the first 2 games. Does the line stop here? Is Arkansas going to roll them, or do you like the underdog lines of a 416 money line and 11.5 point spread? Oral Roberts getting 11.5.
I mean, listen, as far as from a money line, this is not a game. I think Arkansas is the clear favorite here. There's no money to be made on Arkansas as far as the money line. Oral Roberts, it's similar again to Ohio State. I mean, if you took $20 and put it, I don't have it in front of me, Chase. What is the money line for Oral Roberts?
416.
Yeah, I mean, so if you wanted to throw $10, $20 on Oral Roberts, absolutely. I mean, you're betting on a team who has the leading scorer in the nation, and he played like it for 2 games last weekend. With that being said, I don't think this is a good matchup for them. To make a comparison, Arkansas played a game, some of this in the Colgate game. Colgate came out with shooting the lights out and putting up points, and Arkansas's length and speed and their offense on the other end eventually wore them down. I actually think this Oral Roberts game has striking similarities to the Colgate matchup. I do think Oral Roberts, a great run. You can't count them out per se, but I don't see them getting past Arkansas. I do not. Again, if you want to throw $10, $20 on Oral Roberts because of that huge money line, sure. I don't see it like it was against Ohio State and Florida, though.
Yeah. And back to totals to round this out. Just all those ones that just like may or may not have popped to me. As far as totals goes, Oregon shot incredibly against Iowa. Do you think this total against USC 139 is a kind of a sucker bet or a trap, or it seems
I would say that sounds a little high to me. I don't expect anywhere near the same game as they did with Iowa. And we touched on Iowa last week. I think it was you or James said, not about Iowa, but were they a Fugazi? They were a Fugazi. And the point was Iowa gave up points left and right all season. Better after the last few weeks. I was not convinced that all of a sudden they're going to be this lockdown, and Oregon, scored at will in the paint from 3, transition. USC is not going to be that. Especially with Evan Mobley in the middle, that's going to shut down a lot of that transition game, a lot of easy. Oregon scored at will in the paint against Iowa. I don't see that happening. And USC is also not going to. They're not going to engage in that same type of game with Oregon. So I would say off the top of my head, I think that's an under. I don't think USC, it's in their best interest at all to try and play Oregon's game, and there's no need to with a 7-foot monster in the middle. There's no need to.
Before we wrap this segment, I want to go ad lib off script for a minute. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you either want to tip your cap to as far as performance you saw, or someone that just really was a colossal stink bomb and you want to tear him to shreds?
Well, I think more getting on the Pac-12 again. I mean, you had to be impressed. I mean, they really came out and laid it to some good teams. I mean, UCLA took care of Michigan State, who, again, not their typical year, was playing well the end of the year. They had beaten 3-1 seeds over the course of the last month. Great job by UCLA. BYU took care of them. They got a little bit of a break with Abilene Christian, but again, Abilene Christian laid the wood to Texas. So, I mean, they took out – Texas was a Final Four pick for many experts. So UCLA was great. And I think USC in that Kansas game, that was a beating. I mean, that was an absolute beating. I mean, Kansas, I believe that might have been their third worst loss. Don't quote me on this, but it was something along those lines in like tournament history. I mean, so USC, they put a beating on Kansas. And same with Oregon. I mean, Oregon hammered Iowa. These were good teams. So as much as we got on the Big Ten laying an egg per se, I'm going to give credit to I'm going to give more credit to the teams who beat them. I think it was as much that these teams played really well. I would say, and something we touched on about Nova, and I'll put Michigan. I'll put teams that were a little bit underlooked, or not underlooked, but we all thought had peaked. Villanova, Creighton, and even Michigan, who came in banged up, not playing their best ball. They showed some grit. They showed why they were top 20 teams over the course of the year, and even shorthanded or not playing their best, I think it's quite admirable for them getting into the Sweet 16. So even if the road comes up short for those squads, which even Michigan, I think may happen. I think Florida State is. I think that's a very tough match for Michigan. But you have to give credit. Like I said, they came in missing players, and for them, huge factors on their teams to get through. Pretty impressive.
Is that a real gem of a game on Sunday, Michigan and Florida State?
If I had to look as far as what do I think is the best game, I think it's that. I think that's going to be a barn burner. I do.
Yeah,
I do. I think that's probably a one possession game overtime. I really do think those squads are that. Yeah, because I think Michigan. So if you saw Michigan LSU, by no means I don't want to say they got a break playing LSU, because that's not true. I will say that Michigan offensively, it was suited to play LSU. LSU gives up a ton. I don't think Michigan will have anywhere near that freedom offensively against Florida State. And this game in particular, I think, is where the loss of Isaiah Livers, I think it does come to roost this time. Not saying definitely it's a definite loss by any stretch, but I think that loss will now get felt. And like any of these teams, Villanova, as we touched on earlier, it's hard to lose one of your two best players and make a run through the tournament. It doesn't matter what team you are. So even if they bowed out, they've had a great run to this point. But yes, that Michigan-Florida State game should be a great one.
And last time you were very down on Shaka Smart overall. Is he on the hot seat now?
I wouldn't think so for this year. So they had the fact that they won the Big 12 conference tournament. It was obviously an early exit. Abilene Christian, which to Abilene Christian being an in-state probably makes it a little worse. But put it this way, his recruiting class was great. He's churning out a couple of pros. I would say maybe a little lukewarm. I would say next year, if they don't continue on the progress, there may be some further evaluation. But I can't fully dismiss Texas's season just on the loss to Abilene Christian. So we've seen a tournament over the years. It happens to good teams, good coaches. So I wouldn't say on the hot seat, but if I were him, I'd make sure I have a good year next year. Put it that way.
Yeah.
But again, the Big 12 is an awesome conference. They won the conference championship. There's something to be said for that, of course.
Gregors, thank you again for joining us and previewing another round. James the Jet rejoins me up next, and we go over all the action at the NBA trade deadline and talk about one of the most hotly contested MVP debates of the year so far. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Hoops Boys pod. And it is the time of year where people change their jerseys. The trade deadline.
And zip codes.
And zip codes, yeah. But yeah, let's get right into it. All right. First I want to go, let's start out west. The Mavs. They added JJ Redick.
That's a great pickup.
I think so.
I mean, everyone, including ourselves, probably from time to time, likes to hate on JJ, but he's still pretty automatic from three, and you give Luke another shooter. How much better could he get?
I mean, they definitely need help on the offensive end, and this is going to help space the floor, even for more for Luka and KP with shooters spread around the field. Boy, I couldn't get that out. The field. I think this would be, a great addition to the Mavericks. All right, how about Ole Depot to the Heat?
Oh, you switched going back east on me.
Yeah, I think I'm a jump back and forth.
West Coast, East Coast. I like the Vic trade. They didn't give up much. I mean, Avery Bradley he's up there. He's not doing so much. And
I don't think has he even played for the Heat. I don't even seen him suit up like ever.
Probably not. Probably was on the pandemic list the whole season. And they give up Ole, which I always thought he was a decent player for them. But I mean, with all the young players they got producing, he's probably kind of fallen forgotten. So it's not like they gave up much. And Vic Oladipo is a really good slashing guard, and who could shoot. So established veteran in the league. So that's a good pickup. I kind of wonder if he's going to start.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't start, that's a great pop off the bench. It's just exactly. I just feel like Vic Oladipo is a starter in my eyes. He always will be. So I do kind of wonder how Spelsher's gonna work the lineup. But Spelsher is one of those in God we trust type of coaches. So I don't have any doubt that he'll figure it out. I'm just curious.
And another thing I want to say about the Heat, it looks like they're building the land of the two-way player, right? Because they have their star player, Jimmy Butler, who is a two-way player. They just added Victor Oladipo. They added Trevor Ariza earlier this week. They have Andre Iguodala. You know what I mean? The list goes on. And they could really put a lineup out there that just with 5 players that could just do any and everything on the court. It's going to be very scary for anybody who has played them in the playoffs.
Starting to look like Boston South,
right?
except with a little bit more of a tougher chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
Speaking of Boston, what are they doing?
Who knows?
I don't have anything against Evan Fournier. He seems like a tough kid. He seems like he can shoot. Good slasher, wing player. But I mean, Jeff Teague was a good bench option.
And they just got him too.
Right. They didn't really give that a shot to work. And then they give Daniel Tyus. I mean, let's be completely transparent. Always saying Daniel Tyus is Shaq or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but he's still their starting center for a team that's very light on big bodies.
Yeah.
So sure. It's just like you bring in this guy who's fits the mold of Boston wings between Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. It's the same type of player, but how many more of those players do you need?
Right.
And you give up a body. I'm not really understanding what's going. Maybe I'm proven wrong. Maybe Evan Fournier is some secret gem that only Danny Ainge saw. But but I'm scratching my head over that. I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
I want to put on my conspiracy theorist cap. Aluminum foil.
Yeah.
I think there's been rumors that, I think it's more than a foregone conclusion that the Cavs are going to buy Andre Drummond. I've been on record saying that Andre Drummond's going to eventually end up on the Lakers, but what if he's given some kind of verbal commitment to the Celtics, like, hey, I'm going to come as soon as they buy me out? Because if that's the case, then they just made a power move. You know what I mean? They got to score. They need scoring for sure because it's coming. If Kemba's on, he can score the ball. You have JT and Jaylen Brown. They're both very good scorers, but to have Evan Fournier as another option, they're probably going to bring him off the bench. I think it'd be pretty good if they could add Andre Drummond.
And if that's a straight 1-for-1 where you get rid of Daniel Tice, you bring it down to Drummond, hey, that's a win. But
yeah, that's
again,
a win.
we're speculating out into no man's land to think about that.
All right, so let's head back out west. The Clippers. They just added Rondo, but out of expense of a player that we both love.
We do, yeah.
How do you feel about this?
We do both love Lou Williams, Mr. Chicken Wings in the strip club. He's such a good scoring pup. He's such a good bench option. He's always been comfortable and confident and likes coming off the bench. I hate to see them give that up. I think he's gonna do very well in Atlanta, especially with them playing well and get back in the playoff picture. But like we spoke off air, their defense is already great. Now it's just going to shoot up an extra notch. You had Rondo into elite defenders as Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are. But the other thing is, like, what do you do? Where do you play Rondo? Because the Lakers had a lot of success burning off the bench last year.
Mm-hmm.
But do the Clippers do the same thing and they just lose all that scoring pop? Because of course they just Lou Williams, of course, as I just said, scorer, great off the bench. If you just do a 1-for-1 on the bench with Rondo, you completely lose scoring altogether. Mm-hmm. And now, and Rondo's, of course, at an advanced age, or minutes are concerned, but do you now kind of risk that he's going to break?
Right.
Start him, have that lockdown starting five, and then bring Pat Bev off the bench and give a little bit of a scoring pop. Otherwise just lost out the door.
Right. It's definitely going to be tough replacing Lou Will's scoring, and I'm pretty sure that the Clippers really wanted to get Lonzo if he was available on the market. To times past, we see that he hasn't been moved, so the Pels are most likely going to pay him what he's worth. You know what I mean, in the offseason. But I think Rondo is a good pickup for the Clippers. Kawhi's been crying for a point guard. Rondo is like, if you look up definition of point guard in the dictionary, he's probably 1B. Yeah, the 1B image, CP being the 1A image. You know what I mean? So they definitely got a floor general, and I want to see how it works out. Can't wait to see how it, plays out on the floor.
Right. And another puzzler, we'll stay out west. Another head scratcher is the Portland Trailblazers. They need to add a piece. And I don't know if they were just thinking we got to keep up with Joneses, because as we'll get to the Nuggets big haul in a moment. But I don't know if it's just Portland's trying to keep up with the Joneses and make sure they add a piece instead of standing pat. But like, is Norman Powell really the missing link to push you over the edge? I mean, Trent Jr. had been playing very well, and Rodney Hood, Rodney Hood maybe not getting a ton of minutes, but at the same time, he's also a proven guy who's been there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like, I don't know, is that enough? I mean, now granted, as we spoke in our first segment, with the Lakers dealing with the double injury blow, Anthony Davis still out, LeBron being hurt, they're going to fall back, and it's not going to take too much for Portland and Denver to stay in front of them in all likelihood. So maybe Norman Powell is all they needed to add to keep that pace and overtake and stay ahead of the Lakers, or get ahead and stay ahead of the Lakers. But I don't know. What do you think? I mean, maybe I'm undercutting Norman Powell. I know they're being fair.
Yeah, I was really like, when I first seen this, I was taken back. I was just like, why did they do this? Gary Trent was having a really good year. Like, it was his coming out year. Although he was only averaging 15 points per game, but it was an efficient 15 points. And he, he's not afraid to guard anybody. He's not afraid of the moment.
He's exciting.
He's exciting. And
Dunks.
Rodney Hood, there was a logjam at that position. He's coming off an Achilles injury. He looked okay, but he didn't really look like the Rodney Hood of old. I think he's going to round out into form eventually, but this was really like about a cap thing, I think, because Gary Trent contract, this is his contract year, so they would have to pay him in the offseason. Norman Powell is under contract for another 2 or 3 years, I think. He's averaging 19 points per game on the Raptors, you know what I'm saying? Although the Raptors aren't what they were when they won the chip, I mean, that's still good numbers. He does everything that you want him to do. He's a 3-and-D guy, champion. I kind of think now that I look at it, I kind of think it was a good deal. I think it was a good deal.
What you're saying is I'm just not being fair.
I mean, I'm with you, bro. When I first seen this, I was just like, "What the hell is Portland doing?" But then I looked at it. I'm just like, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
It's actually a good move. I thought they would go try to get a big because, you know, all their bigs get hurt for long periods of time, and then you have, I don't know, Damian Lillard playing the center. I don't know.
You know what? It might get to that. They may just start 5 point guards and shoot 153s a game.
Yeah. But since the All-Star break, they have been rated number 1 offensively. Their defense is still pretty terrible. They're 29th. They're ranked 29th in the league. That's at the almost at the very bottom. Hopefully Norman Powell can help with that.
Yeah, and before we get into the Nuggets, one more little note, similar to the JJ Redick move, another veteran pickup is Philly getting George Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I've always liked George Hill. I've never hated him. He's a solid point guard. He can shoot. He can play D. That's a good player, and we know Ben Simmons. He's kind of that tweener type of player. He can play all over the floor, and he's gonna have to score more now with we don't know what Embiid's injury is gonna be like. So I like it. I think that's a solid move to solidify that. But let's get into the big winner, the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah,
is probably baby.
I think this was the scariest move of the night.
And they didn't give up anything.
Didn't give up anything.
I mean, I like Gary Harris, but bye.
Yeah, goodbye. I think they were trying to move him for a while, and to get a player the caliber of Aaron Gordon, and he's going to be able to run the floor with a lot of with Joker. You know what I mean? The vision of Joker. I think it's going to unlock Aaron Gordon.
And considering that the Joker, he takes up a lot of space in the paint, and Gordon kind of likes to move around a lot. That's perfect because the team can run. Joker can have all the space he wants. Gordon doesn't have to be in the paint. He can just go back to start at 4. It's great. And him starting at 4 means they don't just bench Michael Porter, which I think would be a huge mistake. They got to keep Michael Porter in the starting lineup.
Yeah. This is I'm worried. I'm worried for the West. I mean, I don't think nobody wanted to see the Nuggets in the playoffs to begin with, and now they added Aaron Gordon. I mean,
and they bring back a nugget of all, JaVale McGee.
Yes,
athletic big man. He comes off the bench. He can run the floor. Another exciting dunker, good defender. He knows what it's like to win a championship now. I think that's another great move, and they only give 2 second-round picks for him.
Yeah, but this is probably the death of the rogue three-point attempts from JaVale McGee that he was taking on the Cavaliers. We're probably not going to see that on Denver, or maybe we will. Who knows?
Hey, just catch 3 alley-oops a game. I'll be happy.
Right.
The other shedding half of the fire sale out of Orlando went to Chicago. Nikola Vucevic, great pickup by the Bulls. They flipped Wendell Carter, who the Bulls have pretty much given up on.
Right.
And Otto Porter Jr., who, I mean, for being as high draft pick as he was, he hasn't really done that much.
He tricked the league because he had a really good season one year and got paid and then didn't do anything after that.
No wonder the Wizards are in the toilet right now. They never recovered from it.
I personally really like this deal. They kept Lauri Markkanen and they have Vucevic. You know what I mean? That's a good front court. And
good bodies for Zach to play off of.
Yes, and I know Zach is very happy. It looks like they're really trying to do right by him.
And you could almost say this is a toss, and the Al-Farouq Aminu coming over as well. That's a good perimeter defender.
Yes.
Chicago is look. I mean, right? They're sitting in that playing. They're sitting in one of those playing spots right now, but they really set themselves up for a good chance to get past the play-in tournament. I'm just gonna sit here and cry in the corner about the Knicks now, but because we'll probably wind up playing the Bulls and probably wind up losing.
Hey man,
a perpetual pessimist that I am.
not if Jules has anything to say about it.
Yeah, shut it down.
He's unstoppable. You seen him tonight.
Last but not least, this wasn't a trade, but equally as notable move today. The Spurs finally bought out LaMarcus Aldridge.
The elder statesman.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like he's not gonna go back to Portland, which is unfortunate. As we just said, Portland needs a beef in the middle. He probably fitted pretty well.
Perfectly.
But I mean, I guess the odds-on favorite to get him are the Heat.
Yeah, I heard that.
That's terrifying.
That is terrifying. The Celtics need him too.
Celtics make a play. Yeah, you know what? Maybe that's like you're saying. The conspiracy theory. Maybe Andre Drummond's got a under the table agreement with the Celtics.
Right.
Maybe LaMarcus Aldridge does.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know what they're gonna do. But yeah, hopefully LaMarcus finds a home soon. He's a really good player, really good mid-range scorer. At one point, I felt like he was unstoppable. He would score 40 points easily. I really like LaMarcus. I feel like on the Spurs, he looked old. I don't know if that was the way that they played their big men, but I don't know. I would like to see him in a better situation for him, and hopefully he finds that.
Especially getting up to the point in his career where he's in that range where it's like, oh man, I really want to see this guy win a championship because he's not going to be playing for much longer.
Yeah.
So get that desperate ring chaser mode.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough for bigs in the NBA today. Especially bigs that can't shoot. LaMarcus, luckily for him, he has a good touch. I don't know about 3-point land, but that mid-range game, he has that down all day. So he could help a team that's trying to win a championship. He could definitely help that team. Speaking of championships,
nice segue.
Speaking of championships, let's talk about who everybody thinks is the favorite, the Brooklyn Nets, and their lead guard, James Harden.
I did see that one coming.
I mean, I know that certain people, mostly everybody, feels a way about how he forced his way out of the Houston Rockets, and to see the Houston Rockets now, it's a wasteland. And
especially considering that the play they got from was Vic, they just sent him away.
Right. He's right now, he's in the front. He's like front running for MVP, right? He's leading the league in minutes, assists. How do you feel? Like, do you think like a player that forces his way out of a team that he was the franchise player of to go to a better situation should be considered for MVP? Even though everything that he's doing, he's playing the game the right way. He's doing everything right, but the optic is bad.
It's an awful optic. The short answer to your question, the way you phrase it, is no. I have a big problem with players like that win very prestigious awards. So like I'm gonna have this queasy feeling if he wins it. I mean, now if he were any other year passes, if he stays for the Nets for another 10 years, any other year he plays like this and wins it, I won't care.
Yeah.
But this year it's a bad look. It gives me that uneasy feeling in my stomach about it. But that being said, if he did win it, I love James Harden. I'm not gonna be upset because he has played like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are not even on the roster, let alone not on the court for whatever reasons, injuries, personal reasons, whatever the case may be. He's playing on the Nets like that's his team, and those other two guys aren't even in town. They're off in Portland and Minnesota or something,
Right.
It's James Harden's team. The man's been there for 3 months and it's his team,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, he's leading the league in minutes and assists. He's top 5 in scoring. Top 4 in scoring. I think he's actually number 4. I don't know. Like he makes the Nets go because nobody else is available.
Yeah. Like again, like pen to paper. If I was fortunate enough to have a vote, and if I'm sitting there. And like I'm writing in the candidates, and I'm like, who am I voting for? And then I'm sitting there in first place. I'm like, who am I writing? Like, I don't think I would write it just because I do get that uneasy feeling about it. But if I preserved my principles and voted for Giannis or Chris Paul or Donovan Mitchell or the Joker or whoever, I voted for any one of them and put James Harden like second or third, and I felt good about myself. Whatever. And it turns out they tallied up the votes James Harden wants. I'm not gonna be mad.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be mad.
Yeah, I feel like he's deserving. I mean, some would say that he went out like a sucker, but he's deserving. He's definitely playing like the league's most valuable player.
It's such a hard line to toe. Like he is playing like it, but can you really vote for him?
Yeah, without a guilty conscience.
Exactly.
Because what bar are we setting? Like, because now everybody's going to do this, right?
Exactly. I mean, player empowerment was already at boiling point levels in the NBA, and now it's just going to go to a whole new level. I mean, at that point, like, what's stopping Karl Anthony Towns from powering his way out of Minnesota? He's wasting away up there. I mean, what's stopping Rusty? Granted, Rusty can't stay on the team for more than a year lately.
Right.
But, or Bradley Beal. I mean, what's stopping Bradley? I mean, he's played the good soldier, and he said that he's not going to. But what's stopping Bradley Beal from powering his way out of Washington?
Yeah. I mean, how long? I mean. In hindsight, right? Like, if I'm James Harden, like I think he made the right move. Like, because what would have happened? Would the Rockets even made the playoffs? And if they would have made the playoffs, would they gotten out of the first round? And then how many more years would James Harden have to do that before they get somebody for him? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, if he played out the season and did that in the offseason, whatever. It is what it is. I mean, NFL players do it all the time.
Right.
it's effective a holdout without holding out. So, like, I wouldn't care as much if he did the offseason. But the fact that he came to camp out of shape, he's off violating pandemic protocol and partying with his friends and like just not having any interest in playing basketball. And then on top of the fact the Rockets are awful. And like despite him still putting up his usual numbers, they're not showing any improvement. They're not responding to him at all. It just like he wanted his way out. He made it very known, and he did everything in his power to force their hand just because he was creating such a toxic situation.
Yeah, that's whack. I think that's whack.
Yeah, if more players like that, I mean, what would stop? The Kings aren't as bad, but I mean, if the Kings can't really get going in the next couple of years, what's stopping De'Aaron Fox from pulling the same thing?
Right.
If the Pelicans can't get their act together, what's stopping Zion from pulling this in like 3 years?
Right.
I mean, it really opens. If they could see a star like James Harden do it, then win the MVP, get to the NBA Finals, maybe win a championship. Like, it just takes player empowerment to a whole other level, and it's like, who's going to want to be a head coach of the NBA? You already have next to no power as it is. You're dang well not going to have any power now.
Right. But yeah, I think this trade deadline has been a very active one. It got crazy towards the last 10 minutes. A lot has happened. Teams have gotten better. Some did better than others.
Remember back in the day when they got the facts? They got the facts in at the last second.
Right.
It was on the timestamp on the fax machine, on the letterhead coming out of the fax machine was before 4 o'clock.
But yeah, man. I want to do another shameless plug. Is that okay?
By all means, let the people know. Speak to the people.
If you want to discuss what's happened today at the trade deadline, hit us up on our socials at Hoops Boys Pod at both Instagram and Twitter, and let's try to make sense of it all. This is the Hoops Boys Pod. It's been a blast. Catch us at our next show in the next 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
After Easter.
After Easter, you know what I mean?
Let's chill for a bit.
After Easter, we'll rise again. This is the Hoops Boys Pod.
Kobe.
Shaq.